Hi guys, um, hope everybody is okay. This video is not going to be very long. I just want to focus on writing a problem statement. Sometimes this can create a huge problem because we are not always aware, or when we are writing, we may lose track on what is the actual problem we are focusing on, or we might be focusing on too big of an issue to put it down on a specific statement. Um, Hopefully that I can narrow down the focus into three things that will help you to focus and write a very good problem statement, because this is a key ingredient in the introduction of your research paper. Let's start. You can see the three things I have here are starting with a clear identification of the problem. And this is the key. Um, Sometimes it will help you to focus on what is the real research issue that you can transform into the problem, which will guide you throughout the rest of the research paper. So, the first thing that you can do in the introduction is clearly write in one sentence that the main problem of the research is this. So once you have identified your research problem, then you need to also explain. The next thing you need to do is explain why this is a problem, because we cannot always just take your word on this. Uh, you need to provide some evidence or some explanation that why do you think that this is a problem that everybody, your audience, should focus on. If you cannot show the consequences of the problem you identified earlier, it might indicate that the problem that you are explaining, it does not have that much of a real life implication, or it does not require immediate attention, and that will reduce the value of your research. Trust me. So it's important that once you identify the research problem, try to explain what is the consequences if this problem is not addressed now. These consequences, is it for the customers, for the supplier, for the industry, for regulators, for the country as a whole? Who is going to be affected? It's important that you explain. Next, you need to conclude your problem statement. So it's like an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So you start with an introduction of the problem, explain in the body why it is important to solve, and finally conclude with explaining whether anybody else have attempted to explore this problem in the past. What did they find? Very brief information. So try not to do a complete literature review in this point. You just need to identify some major significant research. What was their finding very briefly? And finally, it's important that you also write that what are you going to do differently? If you are just going to replicate what others have done, then again, your research is going to lose value. So you just not only explain what other people have done in the past, you also need to explain what are you going to do differently. And this is how you write a research problem statement. Let me give you an example. So I'm focusing on this paper, just Journal of Criminal Justice published this paper, Strength in Numbers, a test on Cantor's theory of tokenism. So what this paper is looking at, whether the issue of tokenism is in like has any part in the law industry. And if you look at the introduction, the first paragraph, they already provide some statistics to show in the real life what is happening in this industry. This, for example, the report noted a 360% increase in sworn female employees in law enforcement. Although encouraging, this statistic is somewhat misleading. So you see, they are trying to identify what is conflicting. what conflicting evidence do you have in real life? That means women still only represent only 12% of all sworn law enforcement positions in United States. So it's very clear that the focus of this study is on United States. Then they mention what has the past studies explained about the importance of tokenism in any industry generally. And after they mention the past findings or theoretical uh, imposition or implications, here is what they mention about the problem. You can see here very clearly the state an increase in representation in the workforce might also is here. So based on this study, they argue that as number of tokens increase in an organization, they will feel less like they physically stand out from their colleagues, which in turn will reduce their feelings of isolation at work. So this is a real problem that they identify from a past study, and they're trying to relate this with the law enforcement representation of women in the United States. They also mention what is the positive side of having representation from women employees in the law enforcement. And then finally, they mention what they are trying to do in this study. And then they structure the rest of the paper according to the information they want to produce. So here you have an example where you explain using some practical information what is happening on the research issue that you are explaining, what has other people discussed on this issue, what is the consequences of this problem, and how you as an author are trying to explore this issue. Hope this video was useful.